appreciate your time. Please forgive me for any uh, changes in the video, as I, for Christmas, from a friend, got a camcorder. So I'm looking over here at myself to see if my head is in the camera frame and all of that, because when I'm sitting forward to press the button, it doesn't look like my head's in the camera, but then when I sit back, it is. So, anyway, I hope that you're all doing well. I hope that if you have a break from work, as I have had, that it's been relaxing. Even if it was just Christmas Day, I hope that you had a relaxing time, whether it was on your own, with family, with friends, whatever that may be for you. I hope that it was wonderful, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, right? In the States, even if you don't celebrate, everything's closed Christmas Day, so you really, um, you have the day off, regardless of whether or not you celebrate. So I hope that it was a good day for you. And I hope that New Year's Day has been great for you as well. Today I want to share with you a trip that I took over Thanksgiving break. So we don't get here the whole week off, or even multiple days off. Really, we get like Thursday, Friday. Um, so we don't get like, when I was back in the States and I worked in I worked in a different state. Um, we got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they tacked on in following years. They did like, if you had so many PD hours, you could submit those to have the whole week off, which was great, and I did often. But here we don't really have that. So uh, I took half a day um, for myself and my daughter the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is an American holiday, so if you're not in America, or even if you're in America and you don't celebrate, we still get the day off because it's a federal holiday. So I work for the government, which means the days, everything's closed. It wasn't in Italy, but schools were closed and things like that, and then we also had the day after that off. So it was like a long weekend for us. I am trying to see different regions of the country as I'm able, and one of the things that I wanted to do was see Florence and Pisa. So that's where we went. We didn't make like a whole long day of it. Um, just one second. Okay, this is going to be a little awkward because I recorded a whole bunch of stuff on my new camera, and one of the very first parts of the video was corrupted. It's apparently doing it in segments, which I don't understand. I have to figure that out. But one of the segments was corrupted. Thankfully, I figured it out before I just lumped it all together. But the part that was missing was right after the introduction, because I was talking about how we divided our trip. So the very first day, we went to the Square of Miracles in Pisa. Now, this square has a whole bunch of things in it, but specifically the Leaning Tower. Now, you can go straight into the square and walk down by everything, and take a picture by the Leaning Tower without paying any money. There are lots of things there, though, that are not, they're not that simple. It is a little bit commercial in the fact that if you want to go into any of the buildings except for the cathedral, you have to have a ticket in advance because they sell out pretty quickly. The cathedral, there are times where it's open and you don't need a ticket, and then there are times that you do need a ticket. But anyway, so in the Square of Miracles in Pisa, because Pisa's not very big, I don't know if I said that in the introduction or not, but Pisa is a university town, so it's not very big. And from our hotel, it was about a 10-minute walk. There was some really interesting graffiti along the way, which I took pictures of, and some other pictures that I took along the way. But when you get there, there's this wall, and there's an arch, and you can go through that arch, and you're in the Square of Miracles. And you see the baptistry first, which is the oldest baptistry in all of Italy. I think she said something about being one of the oldest in the world that's still in operation. It's still operational. People can still be baptized there. It was under renovation at the time, so we couldn't go in. So instead, they took us to the cemetery. And in the cemetery, you can see the stones of people's names and things like that. They're buried into the ground. And then there are these marble pieces that are like coffins or caskets or whatever, but they're big rectangular pieces of marble where people are buried up above the ground. Some of them were empty. Some of them were not. You couldn't see anything, but if they had a cover on it, that meant somebody was in there. So that was interesting. And then there were all of these paintings all along the walls. And in one of the other places that we went, so if you're in the square, and if you're looking at the pictures, you have the arch, and all along the left-hand side are the buildings. The baptistry, the cemetery, the cathedral, the tower, all of that are all on the left. But on the right, there's this long building. And I want to say it's the Sinope, I think that's how you say it, museum. And those are all of the sketches from all of the paintings that were inside of the cemetery and in the cathedral and in the baptistry. So that was really neat to walk through. And I may mention that in a previous part, and I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but there's a whole section that I don't remember what I said because it's gone. But when we were walking through the cemetery part, there were all of these beautiful paintings, and some of them you could see really clearly pieces of, and some of them were pretty much gone. You could just make out some shapes, but they did have this big one that was the Divine Comedy by Dante, and so it had paradise, purgatory, and hell on it, and it had the circles, like you could clearly see where the circles of hell were, and it was very, very intense. That one especially was very intense. The other ones, I mean, they were obviously grand, but that one was very, a little graphic. But anyway, we got to walk around the entire cemetery, and then this is the part where I'm going to end, because I'm going to be talking about Galileo's lamp and how there were dual ones. There was the replica in the cathedral, which we went into after the cemetery, because you have the baptistry, and then the cemetery is kind of behind, and then right next to the baptistry you have the cathedral. So you have the cathedral, the baptistry, then the cathedral, and there's a walkway behind the baptistry and in front of the cathedral, and the cemetery is back there. Normally you wouldn't be allowed in the cemetery with the tickets that we got, because I did pay, like I said, for a guided tour, because I want to know the history without having to do all of the research all of the time. I like to read. I love to read. I love to know things. But having the guide and having the conversation can sometimes be very rewarding. Sometimes it's like, nah, no, this wasn't worth it. But other times it's like, this is really great. And the one that I paid for the thing was very, very wonderful. And again, I don't know if I've talked about this, if I'm going to talk about this in the future of the video, but I've already recorded it. So I did go all the way down, but I did not go up into the tower because I had to make that decision. Anyway, so the next segment is going to be me talking partly about the lamp and how you'll see the replica, but the actual lamp, Galileo's lamp that he created, it's not just named after him, he made it. The actual one that he made is in the cemetery, and so it'll look like I'm showing you the same lamp in two different places, but the one that's in the cathedral is a replica because they took it out and preserved the original one in the cemetery. In the cemetery, there was the original Galileo's lamp. So you'll see all of the pictures come up, and you'll have them. You'll see what looks like I'm showing you the same lamp twice. It's like a chandelier, but it's a dark brown color. But it's Galileo's lamp. And in the cathedral, one of the interesting things was the side pulpit from where they would give mass and sermons and things like that. They have it directly in front now, but it was built to where it was on the side, and that's all one piece. That's something else that I learned from the tour guide, is the man who made it, and I can't remember his name, made it all out of one piece. It's all one piece. It was very brave. Imagine if you messed up. Oh man. Because most of the things at the time when they're built out of marble or wood or carved in any way, they were pieces. You worked on different pieces and then you put them together. But this person did not do that. So then we went down to the tower. Now the tickets did include, if you wanted to go up the tower, and I could not do that. I knew that I was going to have a lot of walking during the times that I was there, not just that day, but in the subsequent days, and I could not go up all 200 and something steps and come back down and still be able to walk the rest of the day. With my ankle the way that it is, I'm having to learn limitations. I can't just go, because I can make it through the day, but by the time I get back to wherever I'm going to be for the evening, I won't be able to walk. And the next day, it will be harder. And if I push myself, the next day will be even harder. So I had to weigh my options. Should I go up the tower and not be able to finish the rest of my day, or take that out and do other things? And I chose to do other things. Now I did get some pictures from the top of the tower from a very lovely person. They sent me some pictures from the top of the tower. So while I'm sad that I couldn't do that, maybe if and when my ankle gets better and I have the opportunity to go back, we'll see. But after we did the tower, we went into a museum about the square. So it was like called the Duomo Museum. And a lot of places, like big cities, they will have squares of their, or museums of their large squares, which is called a Duomo. And we had lots of things to see there as well. You had this really cool feature in this museum where they had this screen, and I took some pictures of the screen, which will pop up, where you could see when things were built. So it was like a timeline, and it was very, very interesting to see what was built first, and it would show you when construction had to pause and all of these things, and it was all this big timeline, and it would all go across. So we sat there because I think we caught it like almost towards the end the first time, and so then we sat waited for the timeline to finish, and then watched it all the way through. And it was created by someone at a school in Pisa. So that was very interesting, that their project was up there for everyone to see. That was really, really great. And then there were other pieces that had been up in the square at one time, or had been in the cathedral or in the baptistry, pieces of art, sculptures, things like that. There was a replica of the tower. There was a courtyard where you could go out and you could see the tower from a different angle. So when we were walking towards the tower. And when we were in this museum, we were actually kind of behind, off to the side of the tower, which gave you a different perspective because you could see the people walking up the tower. Like, you could see it when they reached the top and they were up, walking around and looking. That was really cool to be able to see them. And you could be in this beautiful, beautiful courtyard. It wasn't very big, but it was very lovely. And they had this little, kind of like a Roomba, but it was like picking up like sticks and things. Because at one time, that used to be a monastery. There were monks. There were signs posted. There used to be monks that lived there, and it was that was where they would go out and they would, they would be able to walk and things like that, pray if they would like, um, and I think there was a sign that said there was a garden in the middle at one point, like a vegetable garden. Um, if I read it correctly, it was in Italian, so I think I interpreted it correctly, maybe not. Um, and there was a cafe, which we didn't go to because I wanted to do something else. There was a McDonald's right in front, and my daughter begged and begged and begged and begged and begged to have McDonald's, and I was like, we're not going to have McDonald's. But we went to a little cafe off to the side of the square, and it was lovely. Um, Very delicious. I have discovered that one of my favorite things to eat is pasta with cacio e pepe, and usually it's some sort of long noodle like a spaghetti or something else with a cheese and pepper kind of sauce. Um, I've tried really hard to make the sauce. I've not been successful. It's a very simple sauce, but you have to time it just right. So I'm trying really hard to learn how to do that because I love to eat it, and I just have to either order it at a restaurant or buy the little things of sauce, and it's not as good as fresh ones. So anyway, um, then we had originally planned to go to a sculpture garden that was a little bit of a drive away, but it was closed on Thursdays. So we decided instead to go to the town of Lucca, which was a 30-minute train ride. And it was beautiful. There was another tower that was there that we had heard about, and this tower had trees on top of it. And again, I chose not to go up the tower, but I did take pictures of the tower from the outside. Um, there was also a an Italian mint museum. Now, this museum was very special to me because my grandfather had coins from this area that were minted in that area. And he had always talked about how there was a museum there and he would love to go see it one day and maybe take me with him one day and all of that. And then, of course, that didn't happen, but I made it. And it was a very special moment for me to be able to be there um, to see it. There was also this medieval piazza, which is another name for plaza. Um, so it's kind of like, sometimes it's the main one, sometimes it's just another square in the town. Because that's one thing that I'm noticing about a lot of uh, places, not just in Italy, but in Europe, there are lots of squares where people will have like there'll be benches and lots of parked area, places for people to sit, and or there'll be a square with like a little commercial store area. And this was an oval, so this was a medieval piazza. So there were stores all the way around, and some of them were open, some of them were not. We did go into some of the shops, and we got a bookmark and a couple of other things. There was this one place that had royal dog magnets, and so the dogs had all these different like uniforms and dresses and suits and things. So that was fun for my daughter to see. And then we took the train back, which was eventful because when we got on the train at our stop, the door would not open, and there's a little button you're supposed to press, and I pressed the button and the door wouldn't open, and then the train kept moving. Thankfully, I knew where it was going. It was going to the main station in Pisa. I needed to get back to the other station so that we could get back to the hotel without having to take a taxi. And we got to the station and we barely made it to the train to be able to go back. It was the last train that was leaving to go to that area for the evening, and we managed to get on it. And I mean, we literally got off the train and found help, and they were like, the train leaves in 2 minutes, go! And we made it. So that was interesting. A little scary, but interesting. I mean, I knew where we were. It wasn't like we were lost. We could have gotten a taxi. I didn't necessarily want to spend that money when I'd already purchased the train ticket. But, I mean, we could have if we needed to. It would have been a very long walk, and I didn't want to walk that far. Because it was only um, maybe 7 minutes from the station that we were at to the hotel, but the main train station was like 25-minute walk, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you've been walking all day and you know that you're going to be walking all weekend, that's going to be a lot. So, sorry, my daughter's behind me, and she's trying not to talk, but she's trying to gesture to me. So the next day we went to Florence, and we took a train to Florence, so it was only an hour instead of having to drive. One, because parking is bad there, and two, it just seemed like the easier way to go. I did rent a car, which in hindsight I didn't necessarily need to because we ended up not going to the sculpture park, but I didn't know that at the time, and I thought we were going to have to drive 2 hours to the sculpture park because we could have taken a train to one part, but then we would have had to get a ride somewhere from the town that it was closest to the sculpture park, and there was no way to do that. So that's why I got the car. But thankfully, I used it so little that I didn't even have to put gas in it when I brought it back. And I got all of the deposit and all of that back, so that was great. Anyway, when we went to Florence, we only had one day. And when I tell you that my daughter was an absolute trooper, and I mean trooper, we had things for her. I had planned for her, and then I had planned things for me as well. But it was a jam-packed day, and I literally mean that. Again, I did pay for one tour guide towards the end of the day because my daughter has ADHD. She has anxiety. Standing in lines is very, very difficult for her. One, because she worries constantly that we're not going to get in, and then two, she can't stand in line without bumping someone, knocking something over, jumping around, stepping on someone. And it's not just a little bit. I mean, we're talking maybe 30 minutes in line and she's having a meltdown because she's worried. And she's freaking out. And then she's upset. And then it's just, so if I can pay for like skip the line kind of things, I really try to do that because we're not going to see things if I can't do that. I'll avoid it altogether, unfortunately, because I can't. She she can't handle it, and I can't deal with the frustration of her not being able to handle it. So I don't want it to be a horrible trip or a horrible memory. So either I avoid it or I try to find a decent way to pay for skip the line tickets. Sometimes that involves a tour guide, which this one did, and sometimes it doesn't. You just skip the line and go in. Um, but anyway, that was later in the day. The first thing that we did once we got there is um, they had this thing called a selfie museum. I had never heard of it, but it sounded right up my daughter's alley. Now, I don't really have a lot of pictures from there because she's in a lot of them. Basically, they have all these different scenes, and you stand in front of them and you take pictures of yourself. Um, some of them were a little adult for her, and I would not, we didn't take pictures of those at all. Some of them were beautiful. They had the word Firenze, which is what they, um, what Florence is called in Italian, Firenze, above it, and these beautiful wings. They had this ball pit that she could run and jump in, and she could lay in, and you could take pictures. They had big things with like optical illusions and things with all these lights and hallways and all these like different things, right? And it wasn't expensive. It was not necessarily my idea of fun, but it was her idea of fun. And I tried to build the day so that we had things that I wanted to do and things that she wanted to do, things that I wanted to do, things that she wanted to do. And uh, yeah, so anyway, we did that. And then we walked to another place that was kind of what I wanted and kind of what she wanted. It was the Leonardo da Vinci Interactive Museum. Now, Da Vinci was the ultimate Renaissance man, right? So he was an artist, he was a builder, he was an inventor, he was a creator, he was all these things. And there were so many things, right, that he accomplished and did and wanted to accomplish and wrote about, all these things. And there's the interactive museum that I took her to where you can actually like some of the things, not all of them, but some of them you can climb into, you can climb on, you can turn them, you can manipulate them. And that's really, really big for her because I can walk through a museum and look at things and read the little boxes and I can be okay with that. And I can gaze at the paintings and I can be like, ooh, that's awesome and wow, that's cool. She'll go through that thing in 5 minutes. But if it's something that she can touch and do and look at and manipulate, and it's a better experience for both of us and anyone else who's along for the ride. Um, so we did that, and that was a lot of fun. I did find my knight in shining armor there, which you'll see. And then we did something that was a little bit more for me. We went to Dante's house, Dante Alighieri of the Divine Comedy. There's a house that he lived in Florence, and we were there. Um, we weren't really able to take a lot of pictures, but I did have some pictures. I did take a couple um, of like one little area where and of course the outside, but you could take some pictures. Um, I'm finding that in several places, not just in Italy, but in other parts of Europe, where some places you're allowed to take pictures, no problem. Other places, no, no pictures. When we were in Athens, there was a part of the Acropolis Museum where you weren't allowed to take pictures because those were sacred religious items to the Greek um, culture, and you weren't allowed to take pictures of them, which I completely understand. Uh, and they have people there to tell you don't take pictures, and people there to watch you to make sure you don't take pictures. But I did get a couple of pictures of Dante's house, and then we went to the Galileo Museum, which, oh my goodness, that was breathtaking. Some of it was interactive, some of it was not, which again, it was an okay mix. There could have been a little bit more maybe in the interactive part, because there are things that I think that you could make interactive if you built models of them, but who's to say? Maybe they're coming, maybe they're not, maybe they don't care. I don't know. Anyway, then uh, the Galileo Museum was very, very large. It was very, very large. um, Unfortunately, with my daughter, I did go through it kind of quickly. Uh, I didn't necessarily want to, and we had time to where I didn't need to go through it quickly, because we'd gotten some breakfast and we had a walking lunch. So as we were walking from Dante's house to the Galileo Museum, we just stopped at a cafe, because for breakfast at the train station I had gotten my daughter these ham and cheese roll up things, for lack of a better explanation. They were just tortillas with ham and cheese, and they heated them up, and I got two sets, so it was four pieces, and she had a whole one on the train. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I know where I left off, but I don't know exactly where it cut off because it said my battery was low. And that was the second battery of the camera. So the first time the video kind of glitched was because I had to change the battery, and this time it was because I had to change the battery. But that was the second battery, so there are no more batteries for the camera. Oh goodness, no, 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 no. Oh man, that sucks. Velcro stuck to my yarn on my blanket for the battery bag. Anyway, so now I have to see if I can find a charger for the batteries, because I can charge it in the computer, but then I can't use the camera because it's charging. And the other battery was dead, but I couldn't charge it because I couldn't put it in the camera. Anyway, so I'd gotten, like I said, the four pieces of the ham and cheese roll-up thing. She ate two on the train because it was an hour train ride. And then as we were walking, she was like, "Mama, can I have a snack?" And I was like, "Yeah, we have some of those ham and cheese roll-ups here. You just have one." And then she was like, "Okay." And then we stopped like probably 45 minutes later because I was hungry, at this little cafe, and got something for me to eat, just a sandwich. I mean, it's literally, I walked into the cafe, got a sandwich and a drink, and she had to go to the bathroom, and then we walked right back out. I gave her a couple bites of my sandwich. Of course, she had her water bottle, which there are a lot of fountains where you can fill up your water bottles in lots of towns in Italy. And so we would just walk up, fill it up, and she'd be good to go. And then we just kept walking. So that was nice, to just have that walking, easy lunch. And then later on in the day, because we weren't done, even after we left Galileo's museum, we were not finished. So we had more to do that day. So if you're counting, right, we did the selfie museum, the interactive Da Vinci museum, Dante house, Galileo museum, right? So I have paint on my hands. My daughter and I have been painting today. And then this is where the tour guide comes in. We had a scheduled meet for two more places. The Uffizi Gallery, which is where there are some paintings by Michelangelo, some works by Da Vinci, and a couple of other things. We didn't see everything. We were just there for Michelangelo's work in particular, but we did see some other paintings while we were there with the guide. And then you'll see pictures of those popping up. Again, it was really, really great to be able to have the tour guide, because I learned things about like the Medici family and things like that that you, unless you really, really studied it ahead of time, which I knew who the Medici family were, did I know the extent in some of the areas of the city? No. Especially the fact that the Uffizi was really originally their office where they had, because they ruled for hundreds of years. It's like 300 years, I think. The family was in charge of Florence and the surrounding area, but they used the Uffizi as their ufficio, which was their offices, and they had connectors where they could walk around the city without having to mingle with people in the town. So there are actual breezeways that we got to see. We couldn't walk through them. Some of them were under construction. But there was one that goes across the Ponte Vecchio, where there used to be a lot of goldsmith shops and things like that. And there still are some there if you walk down there, which that was a place we didn't get to go to. I mean, we walked along the Ponte Vecchio, but we didn't like go to the little shops and things at the far end. And then we got to see some things on the outside that were pointed out to us that were maybe, if you were just walking through, because when I walked past there before, I had no idea. I was just like, oh, that's the outside of the building, right? But they point to certain things and tell you, like, this is where this took place, or this is where this happened, or this is why this is there. And then we had about 20-minute break where we had some delicious cookies at a cafe right next to the Uffizi. And we walked basically all the way back to where we started the morning, my daughter and I, to the Academia or Academy where the David sculpture is. And we got to see some of Michelangelo's older sculptures. So like as his eyesight was failing and he was losing the ability to hold things, his hands were getting weak. Just one second. Okay, sorry. I had pizza for lunch and I was going like this because there was a piece of something, bell pepper or onion or something, and it was really bothering me, so I had to go get some floss and I had to get it out. It's gone, but it still feels weird. Anyway, sorry. But anyway, we were looking at a lot of the things that Michelangelo had done. Now some of his oldest work isn't in Florence. It's somewhere else. I can't remember where she said it was. I'm sure I can look it up. Let's see. But anyway, it was interesting to see how detailed some of the pieces were from when he started. Versus how when he couldn't see as well anymore, how some of the pieces were not as detailed. That doesn't mean the work wasn't as good. They were just different. So he saw the body differently. And sorry, I'm trying to type and talk and it's not working because I'm misspelling things. He saw it differently. He paid attention to it differently. He didn't focus on some of the same things. Um, I'm trying to go down to some of his older sculptures. Okay, so yes, some of the most recent ones. So like they would be the newest ones from like the 1500s still. They're in Milan. Okay, that's what I was like. They're not in. There's a couple in Rome, and then there's some in Milan. Most of his sculptures are in Florence, but anyway, I was like, I know they're not all there. But it's interesting because he was very young um, when he started the David, but to also know that there were other people who had carved into this marble. There were other people who had taken pieces of this rock, so to speak. But it was still like he chiseled this all out of one piece. Now, I did also learn that the David has been broken. One of the arms has been broken, and it's been put back together because it was originally outside, as some of you may know, but it was moved inside because for over 300 years, I think it stood outside, maybe a little less than that, but it stood outside for a long time. And it was originally meant to go on top of the biggest church in Florence, but it was too heavy and there was no way to put it up there, so it sat outside for a long time. And there is a replica now, which you'll also see pictures of where it once stood, and now of course it's in the academy. But it's also interesting to see, to have pointed out, because I wouldn't have known, right? I don't know art well enough to realize these things, but the proportion and the way that he made it was so that it was meant to be up in the on top of the building, and you're meant to be looking at it. So like one of the arms is a little bit bigger, one of the legs is a little bit bigger, because it's perspective, right? So you're not meant to be looking dead on at it. You're meant to be like looking at it from way below it to be able to see this statue. Which if you we couldn't do this, but she had said if you have the ability to lay down on the floor and like tilt your body and look up at it, you're kind of getting somewhat of a perspective, but you would literally have to be like 5 or 6 stories below it to be able to get the true perspective of what Michelangelo was wanting you to see. So I think that is amazing, because I didn't know that. I had no idea. And I wouldn't have known that necessarily unless I'd done a lot of research ahead of time. And my daughter really, really loved the tour guide that we had for this, because she made it a point to give her things to find while she was talking. So again, we had the little earbuds and things, but she gave her things to like look for this. So while you're listening, I want you to look for this. And sometimes she gave that to all of us, but she gave it a lot to my daughter, which was great, because she was active and she was doing something and she was paying attention. She still remembers some of what the lady said. So it is really great. She was a really great tour guide. I was really glad that we had her, because we were separated into groups when we got there, and some people went because they were doing something else, and then the Uffizi, and then some of them were going to see the David with us. That's why we had that little break, is to wait for the other group to finish. But we were just doing the Uffizi and the David. So after she finished with the David, we were able to go walk around
until like 6 p.m. when the academy closed to see different things other than just the David, which we did. We walked around and I took some pictures, which you'll see. And then we went for, I promised my daughter we could have some ice cream because she was amazing. She really was, all day long. So we went and we found this place that had gelato, and it was a Sicilian place of all places, which was great. And we got to talk to the owners, and I was talking to them about where I live, and so I got to use my Italian, which was nice, because a lot of people, especially Italians, they're glad that you can speak some, but they want to practice their English, especially if they're tour guides or if they're other things like that. I mean, they know English if they're a tour guide, obviously, because they're speaking to you in English. But some of the nuances, they always want to ask questions, and I always want to ask questions, but about Italian. So it's a nice trait sometimes, but I have found that even just trying gets you a lot, because they're very, very happy that you're trying to speak to them in their language. And I'm going to be here for a while, so I need to learn more, obviously. Anyway, so that was it for Florence. And then the next day, we were going to try to go to the sculpture park, but my daughter was like, Mama, can we just have a relaxed day? And I was like, we can relax, but I can't spend all day in a hotel room. I just can't. Like, yes, I'm paying for the hotel room, but also like I'm here, I want to do something, right? So I was like, okay, we can do one thing, and I'll make sure that it's close, but I want to do something. I was like, so I'll find a couple of things and I'll run them by you, and then you can let me know what you think. And so I found a couple of things, but the thing that she most wanted to do was an aquarium. She loves aquariums, she loves animals, because some aquariums don't just have fish, or even like other aquatic animals. And this one did not disappoint. It did have some amphibians and snakes and insects, which we got to see. It was really cool to see. They had this tube that was in this like ant farm kind of thing, and the tube went all the way around the room. And there were places where the ants could go in and get food, and there were places where the ant tube went through different things. So that was really cool to see. And all in all, we had a great time. I did find one yarn shop, which you probably have seen pictures of, but I did not buy anything because that lady was very rude. And I mean very rude. She was on the phone, which not a problem, but we walked in and I went to touch something on the shelf and she screamed at me not to touch it. And I was like, okay, maybe that's an order or something. And so I went to the other side of the room to look at the yarn, and I went to touch the yarn and she screamed at me again. And again, I'm having the hardest time with this video. This is the fourth recording. So I'm gonna wrap it up. But anyway, like I was saying, when you're trying to speak the language, it's really appreciated, working to have an understanding on both ends, because I tend to confuse Spanish and Italian, and I put them together sometimes and make different words that aren't really words in either language. And even when I'm in my Italian class, my instructor will be like, Christina, that's not a word. And I'll be like, is it not a Spanish word? And she's like, no. Because she speaks multiple languages. And she's like, no Spanish. Okay. And then I realize eventually what I've done is taken a piece of this word and a piece of this word, because my brain is trying to make the word because I don't know the word, or I'm trying to remember what I've learned, and I put the two together. So sometimes Spanish is really, really helpful. Sometimes it's not helpful at all because, yeah, I make different words. But anyway, I really enjoyed our time at the aquarium. That was the last thing that we did. We did go to a park, and there was a park right outside. And by a park, I mean it's like a swing set, some slides, a little climbing thing, kind of in front of the aquarium. And then behind the aquarium, there's this whole area. And they had a sightseeing deck, but we couldn't go on it because it's very, very windy. Even going out, because the aquarium is like basically right, like there's cliffs if you go down and you can see the ocean. And I took a picture farther out is the lighthouse, and some walls where you could see where the wall, there had been walls at one time. It was really, really great. Piece to see, but it was so windy even out there. Yeah, this video is going to be all kinds of a mess because there was also a piece, and I'm going to put it here at the end. No, you know what? I'm not going to put it at the end. I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to do it as like a short or a separate video so that you can see it, or maybe not. I don't know. What should I do? Anyway, there's this tunnel that we went through when we were in Lucca, because Lucca is a medieval city, which is what we did the first day when we saw the tower. But I didn't tell you about this part. But in order to get to any of the things that we went to in Lucca, the tower, the piazza, the Mint Museum, we had to go through this tunnel. And there were all of these pedestrian tunnels, because it was a medieval walled city. So in order to get actually into the city, you had to take one of these tunnels. You know what? I think I will. I'll put the video here at the end so that you can kind of see what we walked through, and I hope you enjoy it. So with that, I will bid you. All right, we're going to go through this pedestrian tunnel. We are in Lucca, a city in Italy, and it's a medieval city. So it was a walled city, and you had to have entrances to get into the city. So we're going to go through this pedestrian tunnel. I have no idea how long it is. It could be another 10 feet. It could be 20 kilometers. I have no idea. I don't think it's that long, but we'll see. There we are. There's the end. Oh, what is this? Oh, nothing. Oh, there's something in there, but you can't really see it. Huh. There's like a shield or something in there. Oh. Goodness. All right. We've successfully made it out of the tunnel. Look at that. Wow. Just make sure we look for cars and see where we're going to go next. Ciao. Farewell. Ciao for now. And as always, Be the change you wish to see in the world, everyone. Ciao bella.